Hi everyone, it's James here. A very Merry Christmas. Welcome to my annual Christmas video. And Rosie's just joining us there in the background. We're all sorted, been racking my brains trying to think of an idea for this year's Crimbo video. And I think I finally got it. So I'm going to be looking at Warts and All albums. Now this is where you love an album despite having this creeping, nagging awareness that it's maybe not a great album. Now I'm not particularly talking about guilty pleasures here. You know, guilty pleasure is usually an album which has a bad reputation for being very uncool, and for some reason you have this fondness for it that you feel like you perhaps shouldn't. Not really talking about that. I'm talking about albums that you genuinely do love and you're not ashamed of it at all, but you're also aware that there's things wrong with this album. You know, it's not as it should be. And it's almost as if you think that you sort of love it so much that you wish it was better than it was, because you hesitate to recommend it to your friends and your acquaintances, because you think to yourself, well, you know, I love this album, but I can kind of hear that, you know, other people might not enjoy it. And in a way, you know, you care about them so much that you really do want them to be better than they are, in order so you can heartily recommend them and kind of stand by your recommendations. Anyway, it'll all become clear, hopefully, to me as well, hopefully, once I run you through a few. So I'm going to do 10, because 10 is always my magic number. And then, you know, once the madness of Christmas is all over, if you'd like to make a response, that would be great. So let's whiz through. So the first one I'm going to show is the third and final album by my first ever favourite band. Long-term viewers of my channel will already know who I'm talking about. This is The Motors and their album Tenement Steps from 1979. I've always loved this album. You know, with most of these, there's definitely an element of nostalgia in there. You know, you listen to the music, it takes you back in time. This certainly takes me back to being 8 years old. It was The Motors' final statement. It came out and it was so exciting to hear it, but goodness me, it is an overblown, overworked record. It was produced by Jimmy Iovine, famous for his work with Tom Petty, and half the band had left the band. There was only two people left, Andy McMaster and Nick Garvey. They supplemented themselves in the studio with studio musicians. The production is very, very loud. It's really over the top. There's some fairly needless kind of orchestrations, a lot of brass, a lot of big OTT production that really kind of, on some songs it does enhance the songs, but on other songs it definitely drowns out the good ideas. The drums are turned way up in the mix, you know, far too loud. And the musicians playing on the record, it's quite interesting. You can always tell when it's session musicians rather than, you know, members of a group that have grown up together and learned to play together. There's something very brisk and professional about the musicianship on this record, which is a shame because the songs are actually really good. And but it does work. You know, I do still enjoy this album and I do still get a lot of pleasure out of listening to it. There's some great tracks on it. But like I said, it's just OTT production, and the songs are overworked, and yeah, for that reason, I'd say it's a flawed record. So there we go. The first one, Tenement Steps by The Motors. Right, the second one is an example of an album which is I would describe it as being in bad taste, really. I got into this record when I was 16, and it was just when I was on the verge of a couple of years of being really into sort of heavier music. I say bad taste, I don't mean bad taste as in, you know, lyrically bad taste particularly, but musically. This is Skyscraper by Lee Roth. I still love this album, I still listen to it, I still get a lot of pleasure out of it, but it's, you know, it's a fairly tasteless record. In other words, there's no restraint in it at all. The musicians, it's all just completely balls to the wall. Everybody's wanking off, you know, for want of a better word. Steve Vai is just playing too much, the drummer just playing too much. Everything is chucked into the mix. There's no attempt at restraint, really. Everything's very OTT, very just in your face. The songs are good fun, but they're so transparently a vehicle for Diamond Dave. You know, there's not much to them. It's wafer thin, you know, hardly any substance, really, not much lyrical substance. Musically, the songs are clever, ingenious, but it's not Blonde on Blonde. You know what I mean? But I still enjoy it. I still do like this record. I mean, it does take me back to being 16, but it's not one that I could, hand on heart, say was a brilliant album. Right, next one. This album reminds me of going away to university when I was 18. Always brings back great memories when I hear it. And it's not a bad album. This is The Miracle by Queen. I still enjoy it, you know. I still enjoy The Invisible Man. That's a good track. I love Breakthrough. I love Was It All Worth It, the final song. But you know, 80s Queen, you've got to be in the mood for it. The production is a bit thin. Queen lost something in the 80s, definitely. They lost a bit of power. They lost a bit of credibility, musical credibility. It all became a bit more, I don't know, a bit more thin. A bit more, I don't know, they just didn't quite seem to have the same level of intent, the same theatricality. They always seem to be, I don't know, following the curve in some way. And there are some fairly, I don't know, not nasty synthesizers on this record, but it's definitely an album of its time. And not one that I would heartily recommend to anybody who maybe hadn't heard Queen or didn't know what all the fuss was about with Queen, but I'm still really fond of it. It's a warts and all album for me. Right, this next one, this record really takes me back, and there's a couple of tracks on it which I absolutely love. This is the album Journeyman by Eric Clapton, which came out in 1989, actually, a bit later than I thought. There's two tracks on this record, Pretending and Bad Love. And they always pick me up. I mean, they're just great late 80s Armani suited rock songs, you know. Bad Love has got a fantastic riff in it. Pretending has got a really good riff in it as well. It's just, it's got that kind of corporate late 80s sound to it. I mean, you can see from Eric Clapton's suit on the back, it is Armani rock, and yeah, I'm very fond of it. Okay, this next one, so this comes from the sort of nearly the end of the career of this band, although they have made a comeback in recent years, sort of. This is Secret Messages by ELO, which came out in 1983, and by this point Jeff Lynne had totally lost interest in the band. He didn't want to do it. It was a contractual obligation. His songwriting prowess had definitely dimmed a little bit because he just wasn't into it, you know. He was having problems with his management. There's all sorts of things going on behind the scenes. He ditched the orchestra, he ditched all the strings. He'd gone down a more electro-pop kind of avenue. Started using a lot of synths, and the synths are fairly kind of thin and unsatisfying on this record. The songs are definitely underwritten. A classic example would be the song Stranger on side 2, which has the potential to be a fantastic ELO song, but it doesn't really have a chorus. You know, if you think of all the big pop hits they had back in the 70s, things like Living Thing and Telephone Line, they all had these great choruses which carried you away, you know. Stranger doesn't have that. It's a really nice song, potentially, but it doesn't go the extra mile. However, I've always been really fond of this record. This album used to get passed around in my class at school, bizarrely. There was a period where me and my friends were all listening to it and passing it around. It's quite a cool record in a way. It's a kind of early 80s, kind of 80s production number, but yeah, I mean, you would definitely not start with it if you're wanting to explore ELO's career. But yeah, I like it in a warts and all kind of way. Right, this one's for Richard McCook. This is Pipes of Peace by Paul McCartney. There are some days when I think this record is genuinely great. There's other days when I think it's mostly not very good at all. There's other days when it falls somewhere in between. You know, I mean, the song that really does that for me is Average Person. I mean, there are some days when I think, yeah, this is good fun. This is really good sort of 80s Paul McCartney. It's really tuneful. It's really, you know, upbeat. I like it. Other days, I just think, God, this is really irritating. Really irritating song. You've also got the song The Other Me, which I've always thought was McCartney's attempt to do a John Lennon type track, but it's lacking a certain level of, I don't know, it doesn't quite convince. It sounds like he's written it on the back of a napkin, you know, during his lunch break. Having said that, there are some great songs on this record. You've got So Bad, which is a great song. I've always liked Sweetest Little Show on side 2. I think that's a cracking little song. It tails off a little bit in the second half. Hey Hey and Tug of Peace and Through Our Love is okay. The title track is good. Say 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 I've always liked. I've got no problem with that song. Keep Undercover is a good little song. But yeah, I would not tell anybody to start with this record. If they didn't know Paul McCartney's solo work, there's a fair few albums I would direct them to first. I don't think it's anything like as bad as its reputation suggests. I don't think it's down the bottom of his table at all. It's probably a mid-table album. But I mean, you know, I would place it upper to mid. But I'm aware that that might not be for everybody. And sticking with the Beatles, let's go for Gone Troppo by George Harrison, which was a complete flop album back in 1982. It was the last record he made before he disappeared into the wilderness for 5 years. He was clearly not interested anymore. He did no publicity for the record. He did no interviews. There were no videos. He was clearly, I think he was at the end of his rope, you know, with the record industry. This album contains the synth pop song Wake Up My Love, which was probably a misstep. I'm quite fond of it. I don't mind it. I know there are some people here on YouTube who don't like that song at all. I'm looking at you, John Heaton. I've always quite liked it. I mean, it's not classic George. I do like Mystical One. I think that's a really, really good George tune. And the song Dream Away is on this record, which was used in Time Bandits, at the end of Time Bandits, and that's a good track as well. The problem with this record, the flaw that it contains, is that it does sound very easygoing. It doesn't sound like George is trying to push himself at all. He's definitely just taking his foot off the gas. He's cruising. He's on autopilot, I guess. It's an album which he's phoning it in, I guess. That's the main problem with it. But I'm quite fond of it. Gone Troppo. Right, the next one links back to the Motors again. This is the Difford and Tilbrook album. Glenn Tilbrook and Chris Difford from Squeeze made a record together in 1984, sorry. After Squeeze broke up for the first time in 82, they were exhausted, they were totally disillusioned, and they didn't want to do Squeeze anymore. So they got some session musicians in and they just made this album, which contains some really good songs. But I would not play this record to anybody who didn't know about Difford and Tilbrook or who didn't know about Squeeze. It was produced by Tony Visconti, and apparently Visconti was not very interested in the project. He didn't really put his heart and soul into it, and for some reason he didn't get to mix the album. It was taken off him at the last hurdle and given to someone else to mix, and the person who mixed it, they kind of made a couple of strange choices. They turned the drums up way too loud, so the drums are too, far too in your face. There's also some fairly effete orchestrations and just kind of over the top. I think they were trying to do a sort of Philly soul type record, but it's the arrangements are it's just too much. They pile everything on, so the songs are not really given room to breathe. Having said that, hand on heart, that's probably my favourite album of the 1980s. It got me through my grandfather's passing. I remember in the mid 80s, I had it on a cassette, my first ever Sony Walkman, and I just lived and breathed this record, and it's still one of my go-to comfort albums. And there are some good songs on it. The song On My Mind Tonight is one of the greatest songs that they ever did, and that one actually, it's not too bad in terms of the production. So yeah, the Difford and Tilbrook album, a flawed gem, I would say. This next one, a band that I've never particularly been into, never bought their records before this one, never bought their records after this one. I've heard bits and bobs by them, but I've never really been into them. But for some reason, this album, this is World Machine by Level 42. Bought this one when it came out, I think, in 1980. I think it was 1985. I saw them on a TV show and thought, oh, they're quite good, I'll buy that. And I really enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it. I will often play this album on CD while I'm doing the washing up in the kitchen. It's a classic washing up album. It's got some really nice songs on it. It's got their big hit single Leaving Me Now on it, and also Something About You as well. Now, Something About You is a great pop song. The problem with it is it's just a little bit sappy. It's a little bit toe cringy curly. I don't know what it is about. It's something about, I don't know, the tune is just a bit too saccharine, a bit too sugar sweet. And the general problem with this album is that it sounds like white guys trying to play black music, which sort of is what Level 2 were, really. Mark King is a great bass player, and he does some really, really terrific playing on this record. And there are some really nice moments, and there are some songs I still enjoy, Good Man in a Storm on side 2 is a really good song. Lying Still at the end is a really nice kind of love song. But again, it's got a bit of maybe half a spoonful of sugar too much stirred into it. On side 1, the track Physical Presence is brilliant. Absolutely fantastic song. But elsewhere, it does sound, it's got that kind of stiffness to it, which you often get when white dudes try and play black dude style music. You think, yeah, they're trying to sound like Stevie Wonder, but they end up sounding like Level 42. You know, it's something slightly amiss with it. So I would hesitate to tell anybody that this was a fantastic masterpiece of a record, but I'm very fond of it. And we'll finish with one of the greatest singer-songwriters of all time, and one of his most disliked albums. But I've always liked this record. This is Bob Dylan, Under the Red Sky. Now I'm probably going to commit absolute heresy here, but I would rather listen to this album than to any of his more recent work. I'd rather listen to this album than to, you know, Love and Theft. I don't know, I find it just an enjoyable record. I don't mind Wiggle Wiggle, it's only a little short song on the start of side 1. Don't really know why critics got into such a lather about it. Under the Red Sky is a lovely song. Unbelievable is a good song. I like TV Talking song. I like Handy Dandy. Cats in the Wall is a cracking little number at the end. But, and there's a big but coming, yes, I accept it. This is not a great Bob Dylan record. The lyrics sound like they've just been written on the back of a cigarette packet. He doesn't sound particularly engaged with the material. He's clearly, it's not a career high for him. I think particularly coming off the back of Oh Mercy, which had been such a great album for him, this one sounds like he's cruising on autopilot again. It's slightly, again, he's phoning in the album from somewhere, you know. But there's some good band performances on it, and it's just one that I like to fire up when I'm in the car driving, or again, it's a sort of washing up album for me. I'll just put it on while I'm washing up, and you know, I'll enjoy it, warts and all. So yeah, there we go. Bob Dylan, Under the Red Sky. So that's my 10 records, you know, 10 albums that I like them, even love them. I'm extremely fond of them, but they're all flawed in their way, and hopefully there's other people out there who've got a similar experience. I've never subscribed to this idea that a record collection should only contain great classic albums, and I'm always a bit suspicious of people's record collections when they don't seem to have these kind of records in there, where their tastes are so manicured towards having only the best records, you know, the creme de la creme. I think it's healthy and good and natural to have these kind of warts and all records in your collection. So if you don't have any, I suggest you try and get some. Right folks, so anyway, that will do for now. Have yourselves a Merry Christmas as far as it's possible during these strange times, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.